Hello, this is Debbie Sherman, and I'm here for the Bello's design team, and I wanted to share this card with you and teach you how to make it. This is I call it Gone Batty, and it's an easel card, and it's a really fun card to make. I am going to show you just the square version of it in case some of you don't have dies. So this is the one we'll be making today. Um, it's pretty easy even with the dies. So here, let me give you some dimensions on the card. The card base itself is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. The pattern paper is exactly the same. The black mat is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, and the card panel itself is 5 inches by 5 inches. Now, I went ahead and I used these dies. They're Spellbinders Nestabilities, and they're old dies, so you may have them in your stash or may not, but actually you can use any shape you want. I do need to show you, in case you decide to use dies, for the card base, you're going to need to, when you cut it, you're going to have to cut above just a little bit, like this, so that you don't cut the fold off. So that's how I did that. If you need further instruction on that, just leave me a comment and we can take care of that. So let's get going on all the supplies you're going to need for this card. I used some Distress Oxides, Wilted Violet, Dusty Concord, and Black Soot. For additional supplies, I used 3 blender tools, a bone folder, black marker, gel pens, white, yellow, and yellow glitter. You can use some stickles, that's optional. I'd use some pastel chalk in pale yellow, but you can also use pan pastels. This is the chalk I actually used because I have a ton of it, so that's what I used. I used VersaFine ink, black onyx for the stamping, foam squares, a tape runner, circle template, which I believe I showed you. This is the one I use. It's by Helix, and you can find it at your craft stores in the drafting area, drafting supplies, tools. I used 3 acrylic blocks, 3 different sizes, a large, medium, and a small. I used an adhesive gem for the spider, for the fairy web, for the center of it. You can use any color you want. And the dies are also optional. You don't have to die cut yours. I used 110-pound cardstock for the card itself. And any extras, if you're going to die cut, you're going to need the grand nestabilities and then the a die cut machine. So for the stamps, I used the fairy web, and the words secrets are hidden in the most unlikely places. Then I used Pippin, a toadstool mini, the slender mushrooms, and the bats. Okay, so that's it for the supplies. Let's get started making this card. Okay, to start out with, we're going to use the square card, and I went ahead and used the Dusty Concord and went ahead and covered the whole panel of my cardstock, the panel we're going to stamp on. And then I tore some paper and added a couple of heels to the background. So using the Wilted Violet. just a little bit darker. So the next step I did was I took my card base, and it's 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, remember, and I folded it in half. I folded it in half and then used my bone folder to make that crease nice and sharp. So that's the only thing you'll need your bone folder for, but then this will create your easel. So we're going to set that aside. I cut 2 pieces of pattern paper that are 5 3/4 and 5 3/4. One for the inside of the card and one for the background of the card. Okay, so let's set those aside. The cardstock I told you is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So we'll put those aside. And the inside of the card, to stab the cinnamon on and to hold the easel up, I cut a piece of black cardstock that is 2 3/4 by 1 3/4. And then the white cardstock for the stamping is 1 3/8 by 2 1/4 inches. So I'll put these dimensions in the description below. So let's get started on our panel. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to add some gesso here, but I am going to use a circle template for my moon. And since this card is square, I'm going to use this bigger circle. On the last one, I used a smaller, on the die cut one, I used a smaller circle. So if you can see that, I drew a circle on there. And now we're going to take a paintbrush and we are going to add a little bit of gesso. And I forgot to add that into my supply list. You'll need a paintbrush and some gesso also. But I'll list all my supplies at the bottom of in the description box below. So you'll be able to know exactly what you're going to need. So we're just going to fill that in. So when this is done, when we're done painting this, we are going to, a little of this purple, this dusty concord is going to show through. So, but we're going to leave it that way because it kind of looks cool. So with a kind of a purple moon. Okay. And I'm just going to put 1 coat of gesso on this just for drying purposes and time. And now we're going to get started on the stamping for this card. So I'm going to turn on some music and let you watch me make this card. So thank you for stopping by today, and I hope you come back and join me again for another video. And these are the two cards finished up. Here's the square card, and then here is the shaped card, the die cut card. And I'll have some photos for you here shortly. And thanks again. Bye.